It's a blessing to be with you guys here at your senior ring mass. This is a moment where the reality of this year begins to sink in. You can already see what's ahead of you. You know, the next time that you'll be all gathered here together with your parents at the baccalaureate mass. And so you have this senior year. You have this senior year as your last opportunity to take in this experience, which has been your education at Jesuit High School. Today, let's think about 3 rings. 3 rings. The first one is this. Just in general culture, in our popular culture, when you think of a ring, I mean, what comes to mind is the Lord of the Rings, of course. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings, the movies. I mean, this is, as soon as you mention ring, okay, this is the reference to a ring that's been, that's been out there. Books that people have read, movies that they've seen. But before we talk about that ring, let's talk about another ring, a ring that people don't talk about as much today, but was very important when Tolkien wrote his books. Okay? The most well-known ring for Tolkien was the ring of Richard Wagner. Wagner wrote 4 operas in the 19th century, and they were a phenomenon. Okay, take the emotion around like Elvis Presley in the 50s, the Beatles in the 60s, Michael Jackson in the 80s, double it. And this is the emotion that these 4 operas, of all things, excited in the people of the time. Now, why is that? These operas were just about stories about the gods, stories about the Norse and the German gods. And somehow or another, it struck a note. The stories it's pretty simple. You have Wotan, he's like the main god, and he has a spear, and on that spear are written all the laws of the land. And basically you have Siegfried. He's his grandson, and he's something of the hero of it. And in the climactic moment, Siegfried says, all my life, the old man has stood in my way. And what he does is he takes Wotan's spear and he crushes it. He snaps it. He destroys it. And in the process, he goes and he meets Brunhilde, which is his love, who is his passion. They have a lot of adventures, and there's a ring in there someplace or another. Until he's betrayed. And on his funeral pyre, Brunhilde throws herself on his funeral pyre, and the flames leap up, and they burn down not just the pyre, but Valhalla, the home of the gods. Again, why is this story of the ring of Wagner so important? Because of what it represented to the people. What it represented was this: getting rid of all the stuff from the past, all the rules, all the institutions, all those things which had gotten in their way, and replacing it with something else. Replacing it with the hero, the heroic will, the person who would assert himself in the world. The emotions, the sentiment of those operas and the people of the time. One person said, you could take all of the catchphrases you hear today, follow your own bliss, invent your own identity, do your own thing, all you need is love. And they were all summed up in this story of the ring that Wagner put to music. Hugely popular in Europe and in Germany. One person wrote in the 1930s, at the beginning of this century, there were people called Wagnerians. Other people had no special name. The person who wrote that was Adolf Hitler. And you can see what started with Wagner. It's me, it's my will, it's my passion. It sounds great until the person with a heroic will and a lot of passion is a tyrant. And all of a sudden you're left with nothing. Tolkien hated Wagner. He hated this idea of this heroic will, this person who would assert himself over the world. He hated it. And when people said, there's a lot of commonality between your work and Wagner's, you got a ring, you got a sword that's been shattered, you have riddles, there's all kinds of similarities. Are you doing the same thing? He'd say, yeah, here's the similarity. Both the rings are round. And that's where the similarity ends. Because who is the hero? Who's the hero of the Lord of the Rings? It's the humblest person. It's a little hobbit who doesn't want the mission he's been given, but he does it anyway. Wagner got rid of the old Christianity, and he brought in the paganism that came before it. Why? Because it's ours. It's our people's. And paganism, of course they didn't believe in those gods. What did it represent for them? The golden calf of our first reading. And what is the golden calf? But the worship of ourselves. The worship of ourselves. And Tolkien puts in its place the worship of God and the covenant that he wants to form with us. Our third ring is the most appropriate for you. It's the ring that your parents wear upon their fingers. It's the wedding ring. In that ring is summed up covenant, faithfulness, humility, the ability to put someone else's concerns above my own. This is the kind of person that we want you to be. A person of commitment, a person of covenant, a person of love, a person who puts other people ahead of himself. That's what Jesuit High School is about. Those are the men that we've tried to form you into. Our prayers are with you. Our support is with you along the way. And during this last year, just keep that image. Keep that image in front of your mind. That's what these rings represent. A love and a commitment that never ends.